Well, good morning, everybody. Thank you for coming. It's a pleasure, obviously, and an honor to be here with John. And okay, we'll start the conversation. Uh, we'll try maybe several subjects, but of course, we have to start talking a little bit about cinema. You are
Yeah.
here with an honorific prize for your career. It's a long time you haven't made a film.
Yeah.
Maybe it's already 15 years or something
Yeah, I
like that.
know. There's young people now weren't even alive when I made my last film. That's even amazing. Yeah.
So my first question was simple. I know that you are not for nostalgia. You always say that you have to move on. Now you have a successful career as a writer, with your solo shows in
Yeah.
theaters, whatever. But my simple question is there maybe something you miss from making movies, or was there a specific pleasure you cannot get everywhere and anywhere else?
I don't think that's true. I made 17 movies. It's not exactly if I haven't had my say, my last movie was a spoof on sexploitation films. But since I've made that movie, I've been paid 3 times in Hollywood to make 4 times to make movies that never get made. So I'm still in the business. They still pay me. I just don't make them, which is easier in a way. You don't have to get up at 5 a.m. and sit in that old trailer in the morning and eat food and. So, but as long as I can tell stories, I'm fine. Maybe I'll make another movie. I still have meetings about them, but they don't usually happen. And the only kind of movie I didn't make was this one called Fruitcake that was a children's movie. That's the only genre I didn't do. And I had this movie called Fruitcake that they gave me a development deal on, which is a happy family Christmas story about meat thieves. And in Baltimore, we have them. They call them meat men. And they come, they knock on your door and go, "Meat man." And you go downstairs and you say, "I'll take a turkey and 2 pounds of hamburger meat." They go steal it. They come back and you pay half what's on the label. And this is a normal thing in Baltimore. And this is about a happy family of meat thieves that get caught on Christmas Eve trying to fulfill the meat orders for their community.
But is there maybe the craziness of the shootings?
I don't miss that. People said, "Did you have fun making those movies?" Fun? Are you kidding? There were 23-hour days in the freezing cold with new money. I look back on them fondly, but that's not fun to me. Fun's having a martini here on a Friday night, making movies was never fun to me. Like, ha, 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 ha. It was always just stressful. Am I going to get the shot? In the old days when we were making Pink Flamingos, the camera would freeze and I'd get back. We'd have to reshoot the whole day. So I wouldn't say that was lighthearted. I look back on them fondly making them, but they were exhausting. Yeah, they weren't fun. Yeah.
Do you think there is the possibility of making fun doing movies or
No,
really enjoying?
No, not if you're the director. Because if you're the director, you don't even have time to go to the bathroom. At lunch, they're asking you questions or you have to do press. You can never have a bowel movement if you're a director.
Okay. Just talk a little bit about maybe the industry. This is a long dream, this film Fruitcake, but
Oh, they paid me. Hollywood treated me fairly. The more money they give you, the more hassle you get. That's a trigonometry question. If they're going to give you all this money, they are going to have something to say. If you don't want to listen to the notes, then go make a film on your phone. They won't give you any notes then. It's a fair trade-off. If your movie doesn't make money, they get fired. So I understand that. And in my new book, I don't name any of the people that I fought with in the film industry because I cash the checks, and they probably got fired because they said yes to my movie.
And what are your views with the industry, with Hollywood nowadays? How it changed, or do you think it changed? It's better, worse?
I think it's worse for independent. It used to be I could go out there when I would say from Hairspray to the end of my career. You could go to Hollywood. I would pitch the movie, which was I'd go in, tell the story, give them an ad campaign, and they would give me a lot of money to go write it. And sometimes they made it, sometimes they didn't. And I would say the average budget would be $6-7 million. That's unheard of today for an independent film. They want you to make it for $1 million, but they still want movie stars. They still want music. They still want production value. So I can't go backwards. I can't say to people, "Will you work for nothing for me?" I've only made 17 movies, And people say, "Why don't you raise it on Kickstarter?" Well, I own 3 homes. You know, I can't be an anarchist now. It just doesn't. It's not very convincing.
So you mean that you see that it's more difficult for independent films?
I think it's harder for independent
for
films.
young filmmakers, for example, or not.
And I think even in the art theaters in America, I still go, but everyone is over 50. You know, old people go to art movies, and they really go there. They're a loyal audience. They make hits. They do. But young people see them in a different way. But I'm not against Netflix. I'm for anybody that can say yes. You know, I don't care how people see my movies. I'm happy. It just I like to tell stories, and I'm lucky enough that I write books and I have spoken. I always had backup careers, you know. I always had ones that if you couldn't get a movie made, I read a book. If I couldn't get the book made, I'd try a movie or go into television or, you know, always I just needed to tell stories. I never made a movie I didn't write. I wouldn't know how to do that. I'd be bad at that.
Okay. What do you think about TV series?
TV series? Are you kidding? It's more people see it. They pay you more freedom. I think it's probably, I would do TV in a minute.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Did you have any offer to do it?
Yes. The
say
last
it's in the
thing I
book,
did
yeah.
was the last thing I did was for HBO. It was the sequel to Hairspray to be on HBO. Yes. So of course I do it. Yeah.
But you did it or not?
No, they didn't do it. Then they made the NBC the big budget version of the musical instead. But they paid me. You know, I do Hairspray. I want the porn version. You know, I mean, pubic hairspray. Yeah.
And let's talk a little bit about, because you have done a lot of successful books, you know, cult books in America, and I think some other countries, in Argentina, for example, they told me that were very successful, your books.
Yeah, I was just in Argentina. It was great. I got to be with Isabel Sarli. You know who she is? The great, she was sort of the sex star of Armando Bo, who was sort of the Russ Meyer of Argentina. And she made millions of movies, one called Fury, where she falls in love with a horse. It's so good.
My question is simple. Do you enjoy writing books?
I love to write books.
It's painful
Yeah.
or not?
To me, it's the same thing. I get up every morning and write a movie. I write a book. I write something. And my job is I get up, think up fucked up things, and sell it in the afternoon. That's my office. That's what we do. And yeah, writing books I'm writing a novel now. That's like thinking up a movie. It's not that different to write a script or to write a novel. So I like writing books, yeah. And they do better than probably my last movie. So, you know, I stay where they're saying yes to me.
Okay. Talk a little bit about your daily routine. How do you
Monday
work?
to Friday, I get up at 6 a.m. I read about 6 newspapers. I hate reading them online. I still get the papers delivered. And then I look at all my emails, and at 8 o'clock exactly, I write every day. And I write to 11, 12, and then I turn off my phone, nobody calls me. And then I meet with my office, and we run my business. And at night, I'm a normal person. Yeah. And on weekends, I try not to work.
You work where you live, or you work?
Yeah,
in the
I work.
office?
I do in my own house, but I have an office where everybody else works. So, and I have an office there, but I never go there. I work at home. Yeah, because I can. And people say, "How do you have the, you know, the energy to work for yourself and everything? The discipline? Be easy. I walk in the other room in my underpants and go to work. I couldn't do that if I had an office job. I doubt it. I mean."
And for how long you live in Baltimore during the year? How many?
Well, I'm 72. I was born there. 73 I am. So I've lived there forever, really. But I have apartments other places, and I'm always on the road and stuff. But Baltimore is where I like best. And I like it even more than ever now, even though Trump is right. There's rats and roaches, but still, that's what we embrace. You know, it's still cheap there. There's still a bohemia, there isn't in New York, really. It's so expensive that new young ideas can't even breathe there, really. And it's hard to find a place to live in New York where you could come to New York like in the old days and start some revolution of art ideas. I think everybody now, because of the internet, can live where they were born. You don't have to leave anymore. Just stay where you are and make it cooler, I think, is the best thing to do.
Do you still get some inspiration for the people in role models? You talk about some people
yeah.
there. You still have people, you still find new people from there that inspire you in a
Oh, yeah.
particular
People
way.
just say the weirdest things. I think I said this yesterday, but it's true. In Baltimore, I say, I have an apartment in New York, and they say, why? Which is the oddest thing. Most people would say, oh, I wish I had one. But no, not there. Why would you have that? It's a strange city. It really is. People have a good sense of humor about themselves. They don't leave their own neighborhood sometimes, much less the city. And and they have an attitude. They're kind of funny there, definitely. And that's why I said to Trump when he said stuff against Baltimore, come on down here and say that in that neighborhood. I dare you, because they'll kick your ass, right?
You talk about attitude. How important is attitude? You think for an artist, for a filmmaker, you know?
Well, attitude is how you
does it
bluff
help nowadays, or can be dangerous to have too much attitude? Maybe?
Well, attitude is like I failed upwards in Hollywood. In Hollywood, it's about the appearance of success. It's not real success. So when Hairspray came out, it felt like a success. It didn't make that much money, but you have to strike right away where they think they're going to be hipper or make money or have some kind of new thing that's going to help them in their life. But it doesn't last long, so you have to strike quickly. You have to tour for the rest of your life. Elton John said that to me once. He said, the day you stop touring, it's over. Someone's there to take your place. Look at it. I mean, Debbie Harry stopped for a couple minutes. Madonna stole her career. You know, you can't blink.
And do you think that, rebellion attitude is still possible nowadays for young people?
Well,
maybe?
an attitude, what do you mean by attitude? I mean, there's a good attitude and
Broke
a bad
some
attitude.
rules?
You can't be a diva with no reason to be one. That sort of fails, I think. But you can be maybe, and that works. If you have why are these people think they're so great? They haven't done one thing yet. Sometimes that can work, actually. But I think you have to have something. How I've gotten away with it, and I call getting away with it because I never had to get a real job my whole life, and is that I made fun of myself first, I think, and then I made fun of things that I really loved. I didn't make fun of things I hated that much, because being mean's good for 10 minutes, not 70 minutes, I think. So I tried to make fun of the world I lived in. I mean, those early movies were made to scare hippies. Although we were hippies, sort of. I mean, my audience was hippies that didn't fit in with other hippies, that were basically closet punks, but there was no word for that yet.
Yeah. Maybe this is one of the statements of the punk movement to insult your own audience. It's one of the.
Well, it was, but I don't think we insulted our own audience. We included the people that were outcasts in their own minority. I always said my original best audience was criminals. And I used to show the movies in prisons, and they would let me, and the prisoners would say, you're allowed to show us this? And I taught in prison, and they were great, though. We did a movie in there that could never be shown outside, and it was we just had a video camera. We waited for a song to come on the radio for the soundtrack and then said the dialogue. And I asked everybody to play the opposite of themselves, which is a really good psychological exercise. So the bikers were the girls, the child molesters were the powerful people, the blacks were rich, the whites were the servants. We did everything opposite. And it was like a psychiatric hospital.
What do you like of your experience? Because you do also the shows, or you are involved in the parole, thing.
Yeah.
And,
well, I don't get to parole people, but I try to testify when people are trying to get out, yeah.
What interests you in prisoners? Is there still something?
Well, I always wonder, I'm always fascinated by people that do things that I can't imagine doing. I'm not a violent person, but I'm always intrigued to things there's no fair answers about. Suppose you did do something really terrible when you were young. How can you ever make up for that? And why could you have done it? So I always never judge somebody. I always try to find out the story behind why people act the way they do. And I think that's what all writers do, really.
You are interested in criminals. You have read.
Well, I am interested in criminals only because, I was a minor criminal. That's why I'm worried my bag's over there, because I used to be a thief. I have bad karma, right? Somebody's going to steal my bag. But I used to be good at it. I never got caught. But I know people that tell me stories. My friend said he used to go, this is terrible. On Christmas Eve, he would go to graveyards, and when people would get out to leave flowers for their dead parents, he'd steal their pocketbook. That's bad karma. Yeah.
And you had contact with criminals, no?
Well,
Letters, and you had to.
Some I did, yeah. I'd be a good defense lawyer, yeah, because I do believe that everybody can get a second chance if you admit it and say you're sorry. You have to do those first two things, and I think a lot of people don't do that.
Is there, just to come back to the other subject, nowadays the idea of politically correct, I think that one of the, for general, for filmmakers, for writers, for everybody, is there is this kind of self-censorship to that you are scared of, annoying somebody, and now with the power of the social net and everything, do you think that this exists, this self-censorship against?
But I just saw his new film this morning, which is really going to cause some trouble, I imagine, when it opens in America. I haven't seen a film in a long time that had real pissing and rimming, heterosexual rimming at top of it. But so I wonder, will you feel that when this film opens? I don't know. It treats everybody fairly, but
not me, maybe here in Europe, but it starts a little bit.
Yeah.
But maybe in America, this pressure is stronger, I think.
I don't really feel it because I think I am politically correct in a weird way. In Pink Flamingos, the right side wins. Divine is minding her own business, resting on her mantle of filth when she's challenged by jealous, worse, evil people. So the right person wins in all my movies. So the political correctness is there. I mean, I love women who hate men, and I hate men who hate women.
And what could be not politically correct nowadays?
Oh, there's so many things that aren't politically correct. I mean,
strongest one you can think.
You can't ask someone for a date. You need a lawyer. I know people that work in businesses that say that in America now, you cannot say to somebody in the office, "That's a great looking dress you have on." They can complain, and then you have to hire a counselor to come in to train you. So people don't talk at work anymore. I agree with most of it. Some of it, babies. When I heard that one, you know what they are? That's when you have a child and you don't tell them what sex they are. They get to decide. Give me a break. Adult babies, lock those fuckers up. I have limits. I'm not marching for adult babies.
But do you think that politically correct has also, changed a little bit, intimate relations between people has,
Well, it's the difference. When I was young,
the spontaneous behavior of people has changed a little bit.
Well, you're right. I mean, what your movie's about in that park, and I talked about that park that was here that I went to in my life. People had sex with 5 different people every night when I was young. Now you need a lawyer to ask somebody for a date. So I've lived in both extremes of sexual mores, and I see both sides of it. Only criticism I have of political correctness in America, it's for rich people. It's in rich kids' schools. Believe me, they aren't worrying about pronouns in the ghettos of Baltimore. They got worse problems to deal with. There's no heat in the school system, that kind of stuff. Whether somebody is a baby or not, I don't know. So I think it's a high-class problem. It's a privileged debate.
You have been rich.
Yeah.
You have been rich and poor.
Yeah.
Is there any advantage of being poor?
I was never really poor. I mean, my parents were upper middle class. They didn't support me, but I knew if something went wrong, they were there. They would have been there for me. My parents made me feel safe. I'm really lucky they did that. When I was poor, it was chosen to be poor. You know what I mean? I didn't work. I lived in San Francisco, and I panhandled and did all that. But that was not being really poor. That wasn't because I had food to eat when I was young. And being rich, I guess I'm rich now. Rich to me means I'm never around assholes. And that takes a lifetime of negotiation. I am never once in my life ever around assholes anymore. And that took 70 years to figure out how to do that. That's rich.
You also said once that being rich is going to a bookstore and buy how many books you don't without worrying about the price.
That is being rich, to go in a bookstore and buy every book you want without looking at the price. Yep.
And let's talk a little bit about books. It has been, an important part of your life, writing it and reading it. Nowadays, filmmakers come mostly from film schools or art schools. But at that time, I imagine, for you or also for me.
Did you go to film school?
No.
They wouldn't have let me made those movies then. Now they would probably, but then I knew what I wanted to be, but they wouldn't have allowed me to make Pink Flamingos in film school.
I don't
I
respect
don't think
anybody
so.
that has been in a film school.
Oh, I do. I think if you don't know how to, it's good to learn how to work the equipment, although I didn't know how to work it, and those movies are still playing. I think it's good to get your hands on the equipment. It's good to meet other people that maybe can help you get jobs in it and everything, but it's not going to teach you how to make good films, I don't think. It's maybe going to teach you the technique of it and how to hook up with other people, how to do budgets, all that kind of stuff, which generally you can work out yourself when you have to on your own, and you learn from your own mistakes better than a homework assignment, I think.
Yes, I mean, it's the technical knowledge, and nowadays with digital, it's not so complicated, so you can learn it from internet, for example. So.
And now people go and they write treatises, they write papers, or they teach my films in school, which is hilarious to me because they used to be arrested the same, in school. If you brought them to school, you would be thrown out. So I guess that's good.
And which were your influence at that time? Other filmmakers, you have talked sometimes about black exploitation movies, about, the underground scene in New York. Where also artists, visual artists, an influence,
The influence to me, certainly in the films, was Ingmar Bergman the most, because he had dramatic films. He had vomit scenes. He had nudity before anybody. In Baltimore, Bergman movies played in dirty movie theaters, and they cut out the dialogue, and they said, Monica's Hot Summer. And I even have ads for drive-ins, Monica Chocolate Sundae, Monica this, which is amazing when you think about that Ingmar Bergman was sold as a sex film at the time. And then Fellini was a huge influence because we took LSD and watched his movies a lot. And when I took LSD again this year for my book, we played the Fellini soundtracks. They still work. Warhol, of course, because I think he stopped cinema and went back to the very beginning and did it really beautifully.
Why did he quit making movies? Why do you think he stopped making movies at some point?
Well, he did up to the end. To Bad was the last one that he made. He died not too long after that. I think, but Andy revolutionized movies. I think one day those movies will be thought of as important as his art. And certainly at the same time, Russ Meyer and all the exploitation movies that we had in Baltimore everywhere. They tested them in Baltimore. We had so many exploitation theaters there. And blaxploitation theaters too. Movies that were so rude, they're not included in this festival here, like Black Shampoo or Fight for Your Life. These movies are so politically incorrect if you saw them today. It was always where the white people at the end get murdered and the whole audience cheers. Like Mandingo and Drum and those kind of movies where they boiled the white people in pots at the end and the whole audience applauded, and I'd be sitting there, the only white person in the theater, having so much fun.
But it's interesting that you always, you mix in a very intelligent way, in a very ironical way, this elite, high cultural references with more popular,
Well, I like both. I like the high and the low. At the middle is what I always had trouble.
Extreme. Yeah. It's Hulebeck who says, I think, extreme middle, in politics.
Well, the extreme middle, I don't know what the extreme middle is. I guess that's like the third sequel to a bad romantic comedy that makes money. Yeah.
And, how you see popular culture nowadays? Is there, quality in popular culture? Is there a change of quality in
yes.
what it's coming from the popular roots, or you think that it's always popular and you have always to accept what
well I love the fact when it meets, like Quentin Tarantino's new movie is a big hit, and I think it's a great movie. I love when that can actually happen, something that's new and original and it works and it seems new, it's not a sequel, and everybody does go to see it. So I don't think because something's popular means it's bad at all.
Do you have other examples of these films, like Tarantino's film, that can still work in the box office?
And it's original and is a real voice, and he's the real thing. No matter what you think, he's the first voice ever that was developed from a video shop. And it's a really, really important voice. And Quentin's the real thing. Are you kidding? And everything he says, he believes, believe me.
Talk a little bit about your career as a writer. You start, talking about yourself with your first book, your obsessions.
Well, the first writing did is I was at a camp, and I wrote these horror stories that I would read around the campfire, and then the kids would get nightmares, and the parents would call the camp, and they'd call my parents. So right away, I was causing trouble. And then I wrote something for this magazine called Fact Magazine that was an expose, but I made up the whole thing, and I was a girl caught inside an unwed mother's home. So the very first thing I got published was a complete lie, basically. And and then I wrote the first book later, Shockvea, which was about making the early movies. But I wrote all the movies before that, you know. So I always was a writer, really. I think that's the thing that I do the most consistently.
Yeah. I like a lot because it's very honest book, role models, you know.
Thank you. That was the people that gave me the freedom to become who I was. And my new book, which is Mr. Know-It-All, is me trying to share whatever I learned in 50 years to young people, how they can maybe learn to negotiate. Because it's all about negotiation.
Now you are preparing a novel, no?
Yeah. It's called Liar Mouth. It's about a woman that steals suitcases in airports.
Okay. And how do you face, you know, the idea of writing fiction? It's more closer to writing a script than writing
it's
your own
not
stuff?
that hard because, it's different. In Car Sick, the book I did when I hitchhiked across the country by myself, the first 2 parts of the book were fiction. I imagined the worst rides I could get and then the best rides I could get, and then I wrote the real rides I got. So that was fiction, except I was in it. That makes it a lot easier when you're a character. So in this novel, obviously, I'm not in it. So but it's kind of like writing a movie script, with a lot more. I always did a lot of dialogue, but there's certainly way more descriptions. Yeah.
Talk a little bit about the real trouble. You know, did you enjoy it? The
Which
real
trouble?
car sick.
Car sick. When I hitchhiked, it was great. I got 21 rides in 9 days from Baltimore to San Francisco. Nobody was scary. Not one gay person picked me up. Those pussies. And it was the greatest thing was all the heterosexual men that picked me up talked about how great their wife was. And I have all the women I know that say, I never meet any men that aren't gay. Go hitchhike in the Midwest, I tell you. There's a lot of good men there that are looking for a good wife. It was always their second wife. And they always saved them from something. At least the people that pick you up hitchhiking. But I had great people to pick me up. The worst part of it was standing there for 10 hours when nobody would pick you up. And you'd think, now that it's over, but you can't imagine the feeling. You think, no one is going to pick me up. I'm going to have to spend the night in the woods, which I almost did once. But this truck driver said, but you can sleep in the bunk. I thought, well, I guess that'll be good for the book no matter what happens. But mercifully, I got a ride.
And there was somebody that recognized you?
Not many people recognize me. Sometimes when I got in, they go, oh, my God. But a lot of times, no, why would it be me? I'm standing on
You were disappointed?
In Kansas on an entrance ramp. And believe me, hitchhiking is not a beauty trip. You look terrible after standing there in those wind all day long. You don't look great. And so some people recognized me when I got in. Most didn't, and it was touching because 2 of the rides when I got out tried to give me money. And I told this one guy, I'm a filmmaker, and he went, sure you are. You know, that's what he thought, you poor deluded thing. You know, yeah, I'm president of the United States. And then I realized that was very touching.
Yeah. Did you ever imagine when you were young that you will become such an iconic figure in America?
Yes. No.
It's important to believe in yourself first, no? You always say this.
Well, I wasn't pecker. I wasn't naive. You know, I read Variety when I was 14. I was ambitious, but I certainly, all this stuff is gravy. You know, it's way beyond what I ever imagined could have happened. I just wanted to make successful midnight movies at the time. That kind of was my goal. You never, when you're that young, think of yourself in your 70s or what's going to happen and everything. But I think that my parents did train me well. You know, they taught me to be organized, and they taught me to plan, and so I got a lot of good things from my parents, even though I rebelled from them very, very much. And they were happy that I made films, but they hated the films I made. They wish I'd made a different kind. You know.
It's nice what you say.
Have your parents seen your new movie?
Not yet. Not yet. I am a little bit scared.
yeah, that ought to be interesting.
And what is nice also in your last book, I think, it's that you look crazy, and you are saying, I don't know, a lot of crazy things about traveling, about being famous, about whatever. But then there is another aspect that I really like, that you are very fair, very honest, very in business, in everything. So I like this. Talk a little
Well, I
bit.
try to be honest in the book because
Extremely honest.
I'm
even.
trying to say, these movies didn't make money, and this didn't, or this didn't happen, or and sometimes failure is good for you. Your friends get you back for a while. You get over yourself for a minute, and you got to rethink what you're doing. So it's failure can be just as good for you as success. And my career never happened overnight. I guess Hairspray the musical kind of happened overnight, and that was the thing I made more money on than anything ever in my whole career, was that musical, which is still playing everywhere in the world and it's in schools. And who would have ever thought that? And it used to be, I used to joke and say, well, the fat girl and the drag queen can finally get the part, but you can't anymore in America because of political correctness. They can't cast by weight or anything. So I've seen it, Hairspray done with Tracy played by a skinny black girl, and it makes no sense, but the kids don't recognize that, which is even better. They just think it's fine. So maybe that's the new frontier. It's back to theater of the absurd where I started in the beginning.
And of all your films, maybe which is your favorite? And why?
My favorite, I think my mom always said Serial Mom was the best movie I made. And I actually think it is, actually. Yeah. Thank you. I think the best Divine movie is probably Female Trouble, because that was a vehicle that I wrote for Divine, kind of like a Susan Hayward movie or something. I Want to Live.
And Dirty Shame, what about you?
Dirty Shame, that one to me is, as my father said it best. He said, it was funny. I hope I never see it again. And I had lots of censorship problems with that, which I never imagined was going to happen because it's so juvenile about sex, But it was my sexploitation movie, and I grew up on sexploitation movies. I love them, all those Swedish movies, I, a Woman, and Radley Metzger, and even Doris Wishman. She made all the Nude on the Moon. Is there a better title than that? Well, there is a porn title that's even better. My Ass is Haunted. That's really a good title.
It's a very sad story in your book when you go to defend for the qualification, the NC, and you lose, and because the film, it's what you say, it's very light in some sense. It's very funny, and
when you lose for the Motion Picture Association of America, they're liberals. The liberals are the worst censors because they're smart, and it's hard to argue the point with them. Because she said, well, anyone over 17 can see this movie. That's any college student. She's technically correct, but in America, the NC-17, the newspapers won't advertise. Well, now they don't advertise movies anyway, but and theaters won't play it, and it means X-rated. And the Motion Picture Association knows that rating is a failure. It's like an Edsel. It's like a car that doesn't work. It would be recalled if it was any other product. And they have strong lobbyists to go to Washington to change how an NC-17 is accepted, which they do not do. So I don't know if you have a rating like here. Does it matter here if a movie gets the adult rating?
Not.
It doesn't hurt business. No. Yeah.
But
it didn't used to in the old days. I mean, Midnight Cowboy was rated X. But then they took away the X because then people exploited it, like triple X, double X, quadruple X.
And it's still the same nowadays. They didn't change anything on the rating in America.
No, it's still NC-17. Yeah. And everybody will do anything to avoid it. They'll cut and cut to avoid it. But I asked them what I could cut, and she said, we stopped taking notes. That's when I knew I was fucked. Yeah.
Yeah. And you see that then it's like you feel that it's maybe the end of your career. In some sense,
it was the end of my career. Yeah. But no, it did hurt it. Would the movie have been a success? Maybe not anyway. I'm not saying that damned the movie to financial unsuccess, but it didn't help, certainly. And I know certain theaters wouldn't play it and stuff. And it comes right out and makes people think, oh, it's a porn movie or something like that. Which if I was going to make a porn movie, it would be good.
In all your films, you have cast, from a certain point. A lot of celebrities, famous actors.
Well, I did that in Crybaby, but I stopped doing that afterwards, like stunt casting, which Crybaby definitely was, pretty much. I had so many people, the cast would come in restaurants where people would run out. They were like so horrified by all of us together.
And you always mix with non-professional actors, with crazy people.
But they all are professional now. Mink's made like 20 movies. I mean, they might have started as non-professional. But most everybody I use now, they have to be in Screen Actors Guild, so they're professional enough. But you work only with No, you work
Mix.
you mix, yeah.
No,
I
mix.
mix some too, but not as much as I did in the old days because we just started out with my friends, really. So nobody was a professional when you start.
You like to work with celebrities?
Well, not
Which is the
celebrities.
advantage?
I don't
Well, I
like to
mean,
work with. I
famous
like to
actors.
work with good actors. Yeah,
Mm.
certainly. Kathleen Turner, I think, was great. I thought Melanie Griffith played it well. I think Tracy Ullman was funny. Yeah, so I like working with really good actors, and you have to have one today to get a film made. You can't get a film made without them these days unless you have a very, very low budget.
Do you agree? There is, I don't know who said this, but there is no good actors or bad actors. There is only good or bad filmmakers, then can direct them.
Well, I don't know. I
Have
think
you ever find a real bad actor that was impossible to take
I've gotten
something good
along
from
with
it?
all. You mean people that just were like Faye Dunaway, who just just got fired for slapping people and throwing her lunch in people's faces. No, I've never had somebody like that because you can tell when you have the meeting if they're going to be humor impaired, if they have some sense of humor about they can't talk about their craft or if they use the word rigorous too much or if they talk about their journey all the time. It's always usually problematic. Yeah.
So maybe you are happier with your solo shows now.
No. I like people. All Kathleen Turner. They all had a sense of humor when we came in. Yeah, they were funny. They could talk, and you got along with them right away. They got the script. They understood what you were trying to do.
You enjoy the solo shows. You are like a rock and roll star now, more
Oh,
or
the
less.
solo shows. I like doing them. It's my anti-Alzheimer's disease exercise because I constantly have to update them, and it's a 70-minute memorized monologue. So, yeah, I do it all the time. Yeah, I do. I have a Christmas tour, 18 cities, 21 days. I got to go home and write that right when I go home from here.
Maybe, I don't know, we should open a little
All
bit
right.
to the questions of the audience.
Do you think that today is very hard to shock the audience? And what is the best way for you today to shock the audience?
Well, I don't just try to shock the audience. I try to make them laugh. It's easy to shock movies. I'm shocked all the time when I go to movies. Another bad romantic comedy. Can't they do a new idea? I'm shocked all the time when I go to the movies, but in a bad way. I want to surprise you and take you into a world that you're maybe a little uncomfortable with. But when I'm your guide, you feel safe and you open your mind to something. So if you use shock, I learned that in grade school in English class, the term shock value, which is you say something outrageous to get people's attention and then they'll listen. And that does work. But you have to have something to say after you have their attention.
Hi.
Hi.
You talked about using LSD and writing a book. Have you ever?
I didn't write it when I was on LSD.
Okay. Yeah, I thought that would be impossible. But have you ever struggled with like finding unique ideas, and do you turn to drugs for that, or what do you do?
Well, I have to be careful when I say here because people I took drugs with when I'm young are dead now and became drug addicts, and I didn't, but many people do. So I'm be careful what I'm saying here. I had all drugs. I liked them. I just stopped taking them. I didn't take LSD for 50 years, and I took it to write a book. This book, what the experience was like. I guess the only time we were never on drugs when we made the movie, ever. But I was on pot, definitely when I wrote Multiple Maniacs to Desperate Living. Yes, I was on pot, definitely. When I wrote them, every morning I would smoke pot and write. Could I do that now? No. Pot just makes me kind of paranoid now. I mean, I'm not against it, but I wouldn't care. I'd rather my kids smoke pot than drank. I mean, how many school shooters are on marijuana? None, really. So, but I never turned to drugs for inspiration. Well, I guess maybe in the old days, I just smoked pot every day then anyway in the late 60s. So I never thought, I can't think of anything. I better take drugs. No, I never did that. But some people might. I don't know.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yesterday,
Yep.
in a
Hi.
Okay.
First of all, I love you.
Oh, thank you.
And your work. And music plays a really big role in your films. And I know you host the Burger Boogaloo. So do you still go actively search for music, or do you
Well,
let music come your way?
Yeah, I have youth spies that I give paupers to that tell me about new music as a reward. Because I can't go to a rap club at 3 a.m., but I like to know about them. And I say in my new book, I have a whole chapter about how to have musical taste. And whenever you say, they don't have music as good as when I'm young, that means your life is over and you're an old fart and you have no influence on anybody anymore. So you should always try to find out about new music, even if you don't. So, and I like all kinds of music, so it's not one kind. I mean, it's amazing now. You look at the top 10 in Billboard, almost nobody could identify each one of them because it's so many different kinds of music. So I do try to play music all the time. And I ask young people and I read music reviews all the time. That's the only way I know now, really, is to read music reviews and ask the young people that I hire, that's part of their job, is to tell me that kind of stuff.
Yesterday on the stage, you mentioned some names, Gaspar Noé, Bruno Dumont.
Yep.
Talk a little bit about these favorite directors that you always put in your list.
I love feel-bad European directors, yeah. It's the socialism I'm for. Your government pays for those movies. That is a socialism I'm really for. Because in my country, the government would stop those movies. They would pay to stop them. So that's an amazing thing that happens in Europe that people don't realize in America. Think, how do they get these movies made? How do they make money? They don't make money.
They lose
But that's
money.
okay. It's never okay. And you have to think of some ludicrous way to get these same kind of films financed in America when they know they're not going to make money. So I do like those kind of movies, and people expect always that I might not like them. My guilty pleasures, I don't have guilty pleasures because why would you be guilty about liking a movie? But I do like feel-bad movies. I feel good now. Why would I expect a movie I hate when people say, I only like to go to movies that makes me feel good. What's the matter with you? That's not why you go to the movies. You go to the movies to be alarmed. You go to the movies to be shocked into thinking of a new thing or to see something you didn't know about or experience other people's agony, not to make you feel better about your boring little life. Yeah, to me.
Hello, I thought when I didn't know any movies by you that you are doing parodies like Mad Magazine or Charles Bukowski in literature.
Well, Mad Magazine was a huge influence on me, and I'm very sad, it just went out of business last week in America, yeah.
But then I saw some movies like Serial Mom here, and I thought you were a satirist in a way, and not a cynic, but the satirist is imagining a better world. So what better world do you imagine in the suburbs of the world?
Well, it's
and
not
in the
always
courtrooms?
suburbia. Yeah. I imagine I'm not a cynic. I'm an optimist, I think. And I am a satirist, I guess, which makes me think that I make fun of myself first. That's really important to do. Make fun of the rules of the world that I live in first. And then you can make fun of everybody else's rules. But I think to be a successful one, you have to make fun of yourself first and be able to do that. And then I think it gives you the freedom to make fun of other people's world, but understanding why they had those rules too. You have to always learn the rules to break them with fun and fashion, and to have any leeway to change rules, you have to know them first.
Can you recommend, John, an important book for you, a life-changing book for the audience?
Yeah, I think certainly Denton Welsh is a writer I really like. Jane Bowles wrote this one novel called Two Serious Ladies that I still think is Tennessee Williams thought it was the best novel too. She was Paul Bowles' wife. She wrote one novel. In Role Models, I have a chapter where I list my favorite books, and I think I'm still looking, finding new writers and keep going. And then it's really the greatest thing to find one and then read all their books right in a row. I love to get obsessed by one writer.
You are obsessed by Hulebeck, You recommend
Oh,
some
I
of the
do love
books.
him. I do love him because he even shocks me sometimes. And then I like that movie about the kidnapping of him that he's in, even playing himself. And that kidnapping story is still a little bit fishy, right? Or who knows? But I think it's fascinating. I even went to his art show in New York. He had a big art show in New York.
You have been also in the art shows. You have done yourself. You are following. You wrote prologues on books about art. And
That's my other life. I keep that real separate.
Why? Because
the only obscenity left in the art world is celebrity. So, I make fun of that. And I just had a big retrospective in Maryland, and it went to the Wexner Center. And then I had another one at the New Museum, a retrospective about 10 years ago. So, and I showed in a lot of places. In Switzerland, I showed a lot here. So, yeah, I've done that for a long time too. Another way to tell stories.
And you follow also the scene, no? Do you think? What do you
Yeah,
think
I
about
collect
contemporary
art,
art
yeah.
when everything is possible now? There is full of.
I do
crazy
collect
things.
art. I like the kind that pisses people off. The perfect. Karen Sanders, an artist I like, and I bought a piece of hers recently, and she never saw it or touched it. She just told her art dealer in America to throw the canvas outside till it got mold all over it, and then the mold grew, and it was great because you couldn't bring it in your house. It would wreck your house. You had to pay to have it treated. It could kill you. It could disappear. It was ugly, and it was expensive. It was perfect for contemporary art.
Do you think that is it still possible to have an aesthetic critical judgment in contemporary art?
Certainly, yeah. I mean, I love, I'm against art for the people. I think it's a terrible idea. Of everything that the art world is criticized for, its elitism and everything, I am 100% for, because it's a secret club where you learn how to see. You have to speak a different way. You have to wear certain clothes. But it's a magic trick. You learn how to see something that other people can't see, and you have to learn how to see that. So I like that those people, they are better than you.
So I have a question. You are explicitly sexual, and people can be explicitly resistant towards that.
Wait a minute, I'm explicitly sexual in what way? Not in person, in a book or something, you mean? Yeah.
Yeah, or like in your films. And people can be really resistant towards that. And in the face of that resistance, did you ever lose your confidence? And if so, how did you get it back?
I never had confidence. Why do you think I'm in show business? That attracts the least confident people in the world that spend their entire life asking strangers for approval.
Hi, hello.
Hi.
What is camp for you today?
Camp is a word I never say anymore. I think it became, in Europe it was kitsch, and then in America it was camp, and then it became trash, and then punk, it became filth. Now it's just American humor. It's just funny. When I don't know that I would ever say, oh, that's a camp. I don't know. I haven't heard anybody say that since the Met Ball, since they had, the big exhibit at the Met. And camp to me is innocent. You can't try to be camp. It's something that was so bad it was great without their knowledge that accidentally happened. And I think today that's almost impossible because everybody is trying to be some genre. If it's bad, they're trying to be bad, and that usually never works. It's not funny. So I don't know that camp is even possible in the culture of today because it was innocent.
Can you tell us something more about Divine, because he died very early and we didn't have chance to interview him? Or
I know.
How did you become friends, and something about who he was really?
Divine was really not trans in any way. Divine was almost never in drag except when we made a movie. He was fat. He said it was too hot. How do women wear all this shit? He was a kind, gentle man. He was very unlike the Divine character that was in my movies. He, at the end, wore expensive men's suits. I think the last movie he was in, he played a man in Alan Rudolph's last movie. He played a mafia-type guy. He was a pothead, definitely. He liked to eat. He liked to stay home. He was a great host. He had a really good sense of humor. And he was a kind, gentle man, really. In real life, when he put on that outfit, he could become that character. Yeah, it was just a costume, really, that he wore. And he started getting good. I mean, he got sick of the whole eating shit thing because people could never get over that. And they didn't realize he was a good actor in that movie. And that was a stunt, basically. He did his own stunt work. But later, he got weary of talking about that. And then I think when we did Polyester, when he completely changed from that image that we had done together to scare hippies and played a normal person, he got really, really good reviews. And in the best in Hairspray, because he played an unattractive blue-collar mother. And even I didn't recognize him the first day on the set when I walked down there, because he was just standing around with other women in the neighborhood. He looked exactly like them. And so he was really pleased. I mean, he got really good reviews. And, of course, he died a week later, but I guess it's better than dying a week after you get him. I mean, before you get him. But so his career, he was going to, the next day after he died, he was supposed to go film Married with Children, which was a big hit TV show in America, where he was going to play the gay male uncle, which would have been one of the first gay characters on a big hit sitcom in America. Probably would have been very successful. So he really was cut down at the worst kind of point in his career. People still go to the grave constantly. They leave everything there. So now we bought graves there. I have one, Mink. We call it Disgrace Land. We're all going to be married, all be buried there. Yeah, same place. And yeah.
How did you meet?
Oh, how we meet. Divine's parents moved 6 houses away from my parents, and they ran a children's nursery school, and Divine was their only child. Not the best ad. And he went to high school, not the same one I went to, but he went to the same high school where we shot Serial Mom, where they killed the teacher. Because they were really brutal to him there. The teachers beat him up, the kids. And he was an overweight nerd. He wasn't Divine at all then. But that anger was building in him that gave him the rage to later play the character of Divine, definitely.
Hello.
Hello.
I realize that you know a lot about human beings and their feelings and what moves them to do things. I wonder how would you tell someone to learn more about what it could be, or what other types of human beings or other types of living are?
Main thing is to read. Just keep reading everything you can, and to eavesdrop. I listen to what people say all the time. I'm always astounded at what people say. So spy on people. I can sit in an airport and watch a flight, everybody get off a flight, and make up an instant bio about each person as they walk through the door. Just like that's the exercise in writing. It's not true, but you just imagine stories about every person. I never understand people that say they're bored. Bored? Well, just walk outside. How can you be bored? I mean, it's amazing you're bored when you're dead. So, pay attention while you're alive.
Apart from the novel, do you have any other project idea in mind?
Well, I have John Waters Camp that they have every year. That's next month. That's a real summer camp where people come from all over the world. A camp,
this one.
This one is called the John Waters Camp. People come. They dress as my characters in my films for 4 days. People get married at it. Last year, a girl said, "Can I eat shit in front of you?" I said, "I guess." And she had a little deli tray with a sample of a dog turd cut out like scientifically, and she ate it. Knock yourself out. I turned my head. I didn't watch, but it's pretty amazing. People get married at it. They come from all over the world. Look it up online. It's pretty funny. There's some great pictures. Someone last year gave me a portrait they had painted of me with their penis. I know. It startles me, yeah. But we all got to make a living. Thank you all.
Okay.
Thank you, sir.